The King of the Waterfalls. When young King of Faiy came to his kingdom, the first thing he thought of was how he could amuse himself best. The sports that all his life pleased him best suddenly seemed to have grown dull, and he wanted to do something he had never done before. At last his face brightened. "I know," he said. "I will go and play a game of Gruagach." Now, the Gruagach was a kind of wicked fairy, and his long curly brown hair, and his house was not very far from the king's house. But though the king was young and eager, he was also prudent, and his father had told him on his deathbed to be very careful in his dealings with the good people, as the fairies are called. Therefore, before going to the Gruagach, the king sought out a wise man in the countryside. "I am wanting to play a game with a curly-haired Gruagach," said he. "Are you indeed?" replied the wizard. "If you take my counsel, you will play with someone else." "No, I will play with the Gruagach," said the king. "Well, if you must, I suppose," answered the wizard. "But if you win that game, ask a prize as the ugly crop-headed girl that is standing behind the door." "I will," said the king. So before the sun got up, he went to the house of Gruagach, who was sitting outside. King, what has brought you here today?" asked Gruagach. "But right welcome you are, and more welcome you'll be still if you will play a game with me." "That is just what I want," said the king. And they played, and sometimes it seemed as if one would win, and sometimes the other. But in the end, it was the king who was the winner. "And what is a prize that you will choose?" answered Gruagach. "The ugly crop-headed girl who stands behind the door," replied the king. "Why, there are 20 others in the house, and each fairer than she," exclaimed the Gruagach. "Fair they may be, but it is she whom I wish to be my wife, and none other." And the Gruagach saw that the king's mind was set upon her, so he entered his house and bade all the maidens to come in and out, one by one, and pass before the king. One by one they came, tall and short, dark and fair, plump and thin, and each said, "I am she whom you want. You'll be foolish indeed you do not take me." But he took none of them, neither tall nor short, nor dark nor fair, plump nor thin, till at last the crop-headed girl came out. "This is mine," said the king, though she was so ugly that most men would have turned from her. "We will be married at once, and I will carry you home." And married they were, and they set forth across the meadow to the king's house. As they went, the bride stooped and picked up a sprig of shamrock, which grew amongst the grass. When she stood upright again, her ugliness had all gone, and the most beautiful woman that ever was seen stood by the king's side. The next day, before the sun rose, the king sprang from his bed and told his wife that he must have another game with Gruagach. "If my father loses this game and you win it," she said, "accept nothing for your prize except the shaggy young horse and the stick saddle." "I will do that," said the king, and he went. "Does your bride please you?" said Gruagach, who was standing at his own door. "Ah, she does not," answered the king quickly. "Otherwise I should be hard to please indeed. But will you play a game today?" "I will," replied the Gruagach, and they played. And sometimes it seemed as if one would win, and sometimes the other. But in the end, the king was again the winner. "What prize says that you will choose?" asked the Gruagach. "The shaggy young horse with the stick saddle," answered the king. But he noticed that Gruagach held his peace, and his brow was dark as he led the horse from the stable. Rough though was its mane, and dull was its skin, but the king cared nothing for that, and throwing his leg over the stick saddle, rode away like the wind. On the third morning the king got up as usual before dawn, and as soon as he had eaten food and he prepared to go out, His wife stopped him. "Oh, rather," she said, "that you do not go to play with Gruagach. For though twice you have won, yet some day he will win. Then he will put trouble upon you." "Oh, I must have one more game," cried the king. "Just this one." And he went off to the house in Gruagach. Joy filled the heart of Gruagach when he saw him coming, and without waiting to talk, they played their game. Somehow or other, the king's strength and skill had departed him, and soon the Gruagach was a victor. "Choose your prize," said the king, when the game was ended, "but do not be too hard on me, or ask something I cannot give." "The prize I choose," answered Gruagach, "is that crop-headed creatures should take thy head and thy neck, and if thou dost not get for me the sword of light that hangs in the house of the king of the Oak Widows." "I will get it," replied the young man bravely, but as soon as he was out of sight of Gruagach, he pretended no more. His face grew dark, and his steps lagging. "You have brought nothing with you tonight," said the queen, who was standing on the steps waiting for him. She was so beautiful that the king was fain to smile when he looked at her. Then he remembered what had happened, and his heart grew heavy again. "What is it? What is the matter? Tell me thy sorrow, that I might bear it with thee, or, it may be, help thee." Then the king told her everything that had befallen him, and she stroked his hair for a while. "That is nothing to grieve about," said she when the tale was finished. "You have the best wife in Erin, and the best horse in Erin. Only do as I bid you, and all will go well." And the king suffered himself to be comforted. He was still sleeping when the queen rose and dressed herself to make everything ready for her husband's journey, and the first place she went was to the stable, where she fed and watered the shaggy brown horse and put a saddle on it. Most people thought the saddle was of wood. They did not see the little sparkles of gold and silver that were hidden in it. She strapped it tightly to the horse's back, and then led it down before the house, where the king waited. "Good luck to you, and victories in all your battles," she said, and she kissed him before he mounted. "I need not be telling you anything. Take the advice of the horse, and see that you obey." So he waved his hand and set out on his journey, and the wind was not swifter than the brown horse. No, not even the March wind would embrace it and could not catch it. But the horse never stopped nor looked behind, till the dark of night had reached the castle of the king of the Oak Windows. "We are at the end of the journey," said the horse, "and you will find the sword of light in the king's own chamber. If it comes to you without scrape or sound, the token is a good one. At this hour the king is eating his supper, and the room is empty, so no one will see you. The sword has a knob at the end, and take heed that when you grasp it, you draw it softly out of its sheath. Now go, I will be under the window." Stealthily the young man crept along the passage, pausing now and then to make sure that no man was following him, and he entered the king's chamber. A strange white light was telling him where the sword was, and he crossed the room on tiptoe. He seized the knob and drew it slowly out of the sheath. The king could hardly breathe with excitement lest it should make some noise and bring all the people in the castle running to see what was the matter. But the sword slid swiftly and silently along the case till only the point was left touching it. Then a low sound was heard as the edge of the knife touching a silver plate. The king was so startled that he nearly dropped the knob. "Quick, quick!" cried the horse, and the king scrambled hastily through the small window and leapt into the saddle. "He is hurt, and he will follow," said the horse, "but he will have a good start." And so on they sped, on and on, leaving the winds behind them. At length the horse slackened its pace. "Look and see who is behind you," it said, and the young man looked. "I see a swarm of brown horses racing madly after us," he answered. "We are swifter than those," said the horse, and flew on again. "Look again, O king! Is anyone coming now?" "A swarm of black horses, and one has a white face, and on that horse a man is seated. He is the king of the Oak Windows." "That is my brother, and swifter than I am," said the horse.
and he will fly past me with a rush. And you must have your sword ready, and take off the head of the man who sits on him as he turns and looks at you. There's no sword in the world that would cut off his head, save only that one."
"I will do it," replied the king, and he listened with all his might till he judged the white-faced horse came close to him. Then he sat up very straight and made ready. The next moment there was a rushing noise as a mighty tempest, and the young man caught a glimpse of a face turned towards him. Almost blindly he struck, not knowing whether he had killed or only wounded the rider. But the head rolled off and was caught in the brown horse's mouth.
"Jump on my brother, the black horse, and go home as fast as you can, and I will follow as quickly as I may,"
cried the brown horse, leaping forward to the king, lighted on the back of the black horse, but so near the tail that he almost fell off again. But he stretched his arm and clutched wildly to the mane and pulled himself into the saddle. Before the sky was streaked with red, he was at home again, and the queen was sitting, waiting till he arrived, for sleep was far from her eyes. Glad she was to see him enter, but she said little, only took her harp and sang softly the songs which he loved, till he went to bed, soothed and happy. It was broad day when he awoke, and sprang up, saying, "Now I must go to the Gruagach and find out what spells he laid on me to loose."
"Have a care," answered the queen, "for it is not with a smile as the other days that he will greet you. Furiously he will meet you, and he will ask you in his wrath if you have got the sword, and you will reply that you have got it. Next he will want to know how you got it. To this you must say that but for the knob you hadn't got it all. Then he will raise his head and look at the knob. You must stab him with the mole which is on the right side of his neck. But take heed, for if you miss the mole with the point of the sword, then my death and your death are certain. He is the brother to the king of the oak windows, and sure he will be the king when he is dead, or the sword will not be in your hands."
After that she kissed him, and bade him good speed. "Didst thou get the sword?" asked Gruagach, when they met in the usual place. "I got the sword." "And how didst thou get it?" "If it had not had a knob on the top, then I would not have got it," answered the king. "Give me the sword to look at," said Gruagach, peering forward. But like a flash the king had drawn it from under the nose and pierced the mole, so that Gruagach rolled over on the ground. "Now I shall be at peace," said the king. But he was wrong, for when he reached home he found his servants tied together back to back with cloths round their mouths, so that they could not speak. He hastened to set them free, and he asked who had treated them in so evil a manner.
"No sooner had you gone till the great giant came and dealt with us, you see, and carried off your wife and the 2 horses," said the men.
"Then my eyes will not close, nor will my head lay itself down till I fetch my wife and the horses again," answered he, and he stooped and noted the tracks of the horses on the grass, and followed after them until he arrived at the wood, when the darkness fell. "I will sleep here," he said to himself, "but first I will make a fire." And he gathered together some twigs that were lying about, and then took 2 dry sticks and rubbed them together till the fire came, and he sat by it. The twigs crackled, and the flame blazed up, and a slim yellow dog pushed through the bushes and laid his head on the king's knee, and the king stroked his head.
"Oof, oof," said the dog. "So was the plight of thy wife and thy horses when the giant drove them last night through the forest."
"That is why I have come," answered the king, and suddenly his heart seemed to fail him, and he could not get the feeling to go on.
"I cannot fight against the giant,"
he cried, looking at the dog with a white face.
"I am afraid. Let me turn homewards."
"You don't want to do that,"
said the dog.
"Eat and sleep, and I will watch over you."
So the king ate and lay down, and slept until the sun waked him.
"It is time for you to start on your way," said the dog. "If danger presses, call on me, and I will help you."
"Fellow, then," answered the king, "I will not forget that promise." And on he went, and on, till he reached a tall cliff with many sticks lying around. It is almost night, he thought. I will make fire and rest. And thus he did, and when flames blazed up, a hoary hawk of a grey rock flew on a bough above him.
It was some plight to thy horse and thy wife and passed when they hear you through her giants.
Let me try that again, because that was horrible.
So is the plight of thy wife and thy horses when they are passed here with a giant, said the hawk.
Never shall I find them, answered the king, and nothing shall I get for all my trouble.
Oh, take heart,
replied the hawk.
Things are never so bad as when they might be worse. Eat and sleep, and I will watch over thee.
And the king did as he was bidden by the hawk, and by the morning he felt brave again.
Farewell, said the bird, and if danger presses, call to me, and I will help you.
On he walked, and on, till as the dusk was falling he came to a great river, and on the bank there were sticks lying about. I will make myself a fire, he thought, and thus he did. By and by a smooth brown head peered at him from the water, and a long body followed.
So was the plight of thy wolf and thy horses when they passed over the river last night, said the otter.
I will sought them and not found them, answered the king, and naught shall I get for my trouble.
Don't be downcast, replied the otter. Before noon tomorrow thou shalt behold thy wife. But eat and sleep, and I will watch over thee.
And so the king did as the otter bid him. And when the sun rose, he woke and saw the otter lying on the bank.
Farewell,
he cried the otter as he jumped into the water.
And if danger presses, call to me, and I will help you.
For many hours the king walked, and at length he reached a high rock, which was rent in two by a giant earthquake. Throwing himself upon the ground, he looked over the side, and right at the very bottom he saw his wife and his horses. His heart gave a great bound, and all his fears left him, but he was forced to be patient, for the sides of the rock were smooth, and not even a goat could find a foothold. So he got up again and made his way around through the woods, pushing by trees, scrambling over rocks, and wading through streams till at last he was on flat ground again, close to the mouth of the cavern. His wife gave a shriek of joy when he came in, and then burst into tears, for she was tired and very frightened. But her husband did not understand why she wept, and he was tired and bruised from his climb, and a little cross too. You give me but a sorry welcome, grumbled he, when I have half killed myself to get to you.
Eat him not,
said the horses to the weeping woman.
Put him in front of us, where he will be safe, and give him the food, for he is weary.
And she did as the horses told her, and he ate and rested, until by and by a long shadow fell over them, and their hearts beat with fear, for they knew that the giant was coming. I smell a stranger, cried the giant as he entered. But it was dark inside the chasm, and he did not see the king, who was crouching down between the feet of the horses.
A stranger, my lord. No stranger ever comes here, not even the sun.
And the king's wife laughed gaily as she went up to the giant and stroked his huge hand, which hung down by his side. Well, I perceive nothing, certainly, answered he, but it is very odd. However, it is time that the horses were fed. And he lifted down an armful of hay from a shelf of rock, and held out a handful to each animal, who moved forward to meet him, leaving the king behind. As soon as the giant's hands were near their mouths, he made each a snap, and began to bite him, so that his groans and shrieks might have been heard a mile off. Then they wheeled around and kicked him until they could kick no more. At length the giant crawled away and lay quivering in a corner, and the queen went up to him.
Poor thing, she said. It seemed to have gone mad. It was awful to behold.
If I had a soul in my body, they would certainly have killed me, groaned the giant.
It was lucky indeed, answered the queen. But tell me, where is thy soul, that I might take care of it?
Up there, on the Bonuk stone, answered the giant, pointing to a stone which was balanced loosely on the edge of the rock. By now leave me, that I may sleep, for I have far to go tomorrow." Soon the snores were heard from the corner where the giant lay, and then the queen lay down too, and the horses and the king was hidden between them, so that none could see him. Before the dawn the giant rose and went out, and immediately the queen ran out to the bonnet stone, and tugged and pushed at it till it was quite steady on its ledge, and could not fall over. And so it was in the evening when the giant came home. When they saw his shadow, the king crept down in front of the horses. "Why have you done that to the bonnet stone?" asked the giant.
"I feared lest it should fall over and be broken with your soul in it," said the queen. "So I put it further back on the ledge."
"That is not where my soul is," answered he. "It is on the threshold, but it is time the horses were fed." He fetched the hay and gave it to the horses, and they bit and kicked him as before, till he lay half dead on the ground. Next morning he rose and went out, and the queen ran to the threshold of the cave and washed the stones, and pulled up some moss and little flowers that were hidden in the crannies. By and by, when dusk had fallen, the giant came home. "You have been cleaning the threshold," said he.
"And was I not right to do so, seeing that your soul was in it?" asked the queen.
"It is not there that my soul is," answered the giant. "Under the threshold is a stone. Under the stone is a sheep, and in the sheep's body is a duck. And in the duck is an egg, and in the egg is my soul. But it is late. I must feed the horses." And he brought them the hay, and they only bit and kicked him as before, as if his soul had been within him. They would have killed him outright. It was dark when the giant got up and went his way, and then the king and queen ran forward and take up the threshold, while the horses looked on. Sure enough, just as the giant had said, underneath the threshold was a flagstone, and they pulled and tugged it till the stone gave way, and something jumped out of it suddenly that nearly knocked them down, and as it fled past, they saw it was a sheep.
"If the slim yellow dog and the green were only here, he would have done that shape,"
cried the king, and as he spoke, the slim yellow dog appeared from the forest with the sheep in his mouth. With a blow from the king, the sheep fell dead, and then he opened its body, only to be blinded by a rush of wings as the duck flew past.
"If the hoary hawk of the rock were only here, he would soon have that duck," cried the king. And as he spoke, the hoary hawk was seen hovering above them, with a duck in its mouth. They cut off the duck's head, and with a swing of the king's sword, they took the egg out of its body. But in his triumph, the king held it carelessly, and it slipped from his hand and rolled swiftly down the hill right into the river. "If the brown otter of the stream was only here, he would have that egg," said the king, and the next minute there was the brown otter, dripping with water, holding the egg in its mouth. But beside the brown otter, a huge shadow came stealing along, the shadow of a giant. The king stood staring at it as if he were turned to stone, but the queen snatched the egg from the otter and crushed it between her 2 hands. After that the shadow suddenly shrank and was still, and they knew that the giant was dead, because they had found his soul. Next day they mounted the 2 horses and rode home again, visiting their friends the brown otter, the hoary hawk, and the slim yellow dog by the way.